And can you give an example of, you said you make comparisons with other people, I think you said?
Well, I've set myself up to where I simply make comparisons to things, but I always take the risk, usually not to agree with anything, and then I figure out a way to how that makes sense. Now, that may not make sense to you, but I just do it to challenge myself all the time. You see, and the comparisons. Well, I'll give you one. It's like, these three uh, investigations that Val's going through. It's just rather humorous. It is. I think it's fun, but and Val is he's learning a lot, and so is Kelsey, and this is good. All you kids are from this. It's a lot. You're learning a lot, and it's very good. And so then the other day, a couple days ago, Kelsey and Val came in the door, and they said, "Well, you want to tell Duane what's the latest thing now?" And so again, then it was the plagiarism thing. And right away I said, it's baloney. Not even considering it. I said, it's baloney. Because basically, it's like Ava, she'll read the news. She's so funny. She's cute every day. She'll say something about Trump or something or whatever. I said, Ava, it's just baloney. I don't want to hear it. So again, we go back and forth on this. And then through that, I started to describe it because I took on the challenge of defining what I just said. And I did because it's always there. And this is how I practice pulling it out of this isness. Heck, I didn't even know what I was going to say. I never do. But I'll just say something and I'll bring it around and I'll figure it out. And so again, this is what I'm trying to show Val and Kelsey and you and anyone else that steps up. This is why, I asked Chris and he got frustrated and he quit. It's like, oh, I'm out of here. It's like, Chris, this is your forte, but he didn't want to do it. His grapes and his Netflix are more important. And I get it, and it's fine. That's his choice. But this is for you kids because as this thing goes along here and what we're doing, there's a much bigger picture coming, you see. So what I did with that, I used comparisons, all right? And that was, on that one, was first of all, Val, he didn't get funding, so his classes are pass or fail. So where does the plagiarism apply when the class really means nothing? Okay, so number one, it means nothing. And then here's Lila, supposedly she's not getting any money either, so she's just taking classes. So again, even though the two are the same, plagiarism to what? Is the school coming in and acting as a referee? Okay, I'm comparing what doesn't make sense to what does make sense. All right, here's the comparison, and that is that what gives them the right to step up and say, hey, they could say, hey, oh, these two papers are the same. Okay, you could ask the question, but all of a sudden they say, oh, this is plagiarism. That's pretty hard. That's like in the courtroom where the judge puts down his hammer and says guilty. This is nonsense. This is like little kids trying to be adults. Okay, this is what these people are, and I don't like to make fun of kids. Immature little bodies, etc., whatever. But there's a comparison there. So I like the challenge of seeing all this. And of course, it came out fine because it's true. Neither one of their classes matter. Okay, either way, whatever, and etc. And if and everybody is copying everybody else anyhow. So realistically, what the frig does that matter? So I just the comparison is to what makes sense and what doesn't. So they jumped the gun again. And that's that's harassment, you might say, etc. So that's one, but I do it all the time. I always compare. I compare, what I've gone through to what I'm going through now, okay, as a comparison, and then I compare it to the is. I always compare it to the is. And I do this from my mind, you see. So it would be like something simple would be like what you do every day in your life, and you compare it to the sun shining. Now, when you look at the sun shining and you compare everything that you do every day, do you see the difference? Is there a difference? And what do you recognize from that difference? You decide, you see? But you see, for the most part, most people don't, you might say, think in those terms. They kind of bring everything together, just like the five bodies you have: physical, astrocausal, mental, etheric, etc. All these bodies are operating their own lives. They all do their own function. And just like a car, most people don't think about the motor, the alternator, the radiator, the power steering. They don't think about all those things. They just think, oh, this is my car. And they just mash it all together. And they don't understand how the different components work and what they each have to do. So this is where people have actually one-dimensionalized themselves into just one person with feelings and ideas and imaginations and wants and likes and dislikes, but it's all in one. So there's the one-dimensionalized person. So to become multidimensional, and even more than that, you must decide to recognize and learn to compare the difference between all these things. Is there a difference between the motor and the alternator and the radiator? Is there a difference? Of course there is, isn't there? Then you decide to recognize what the difference is. But now we're on a bigger scale, and that is that you're in creation, and you've been here a long time doing all this funny stuff. Now, this will help you recognize more so the isness, and you can start off with the sun to start this comparison going, to recognize the difference between the two. You see?
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, and I figured all this stuff out myself, because I kept at it. Yes, and that's what I write about. The thing I love is that I can pull anything out of the is, because everything that is in creation, and way more than that that's possible, already is. See, this is the cool thing about it. And so I can create my life accordingly, but at the same time, while I'm in creation in this knucklehead world, this physical body world, I got to deal with others. I got to deal with their restrictions, and this is what we're going through in the college. So we're providing an opportunity for them, whether they see it or not, and we're only going to be there so long, and then we're going to bail because we don't need them. I want to get on with my stuff. This stuff is just nonsense. We're going to set our stuff up. We're not going to do it like this at all. But this is a good objective view for all of you kids to see that, hey, we're not going to do it this way at all. There aren't going to be really any forms and all this nonsense. We're going to have fun doing something wonderful. But working our way there and going through the process, and the boys on the real side getting it all ready. I'm there too. We're getting it ready. But it's a lot to bring it in. It's a lot to recognize it and to take part in it. See, this is preparing you. And so it's not going to fall out of the sky, but once it's at a suitable position, you might say, and then you have to be ready for it so that you're willing and able to do something, you see. And everything you're doing now, like I've told Kelsey and Val, this is batting practice. You're getting ready. We're not even at the start yet. Okay, we're just getting ready to start the big show. And it's a lot to bring that in. And the world is going to resist. This is how it's been built, is to resist. It has purposely been built to resist. And so again, it's a challenge, but at the same time, you get the real education. You get to become more aware through that challenge, you see. If you do nothing and just hang out, this is why I suggest that, what you're doing now, just keep busy until, you kind of transform into more and more. It'll take it a step at a time. And on the real side, you're gaining experiences. And then you learn how to see them, you learn how to compare them with whatever, and you learn how to more recognize. You have to decide to recognize the as. It cannot do that for you. Just like the sun shining, you have to recognize what it is demonstrating. That's why it's in the sky. You know, just like the Statue of Liberty, why they put it up? What is it demonstrating? It's not like, look there's a Statue of Liberty. Oh, it embodies or it represents. It's not about what it represents. It represents the land of the free, home of the brave. Well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means you just got to go to work and keep working until you're too old to remember you're here. That's about all it means. Well, what is it? What is it demonstrating? You see? What is it really demonstrating? And so again, but the sun is a better example. Statue of Liberty is kind of duh, really. That was a ploy anyhow by the cabal, make people feel good, when they left Europe, but that was a ploy too, because it got people to settle in the United States so they'd be part of the takeover, but they use the idea, you go to the United States and you'll have free religion and you won't be roped in anymore. Well, the cabal, the bankers and that, they made all that story up to get people to the new land thinking that they're going to be freer. No, this is a takeover country. It got them there to build the structures because they weren't going to do it, etc. So on Earth, fortunately, we still see the sun, and the sun is the best example. It's awesome. It's an awesome reality that we have with us every day as a reminder. It helps us remind us. And it's very important. I see it as very important. More so than the stars. You see, the stars are particular, but we really have a relationship with the sun as personal beings here. And we need that. Just like you need your little self. The real you needs the little self so that it has a comparison, so that it's gone through all these lifetimes to recognize what is not real, what is not necessary, what has no value. To eventually recognize what is real, what's awesome, and what has real value, you see. More so than anything that's been decided in creation. And then so you also see the value. Then you start to see, when you recognize the is, then you start to see the real value, and don't take it for granted anymore, of creation. You see, it all goes hand in hand. But for the most part, most people take creation for granted because they don't recognize the is.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. I don't know if Kelsey told you, but I had this experience a few weeks ago where I was the guide stopped me from being poisoned at some restaurant for an awards dinner, and then as I was walking there, I started raining candy and like chocolate, and and I was like dancing in the chocolate rain, and then I was on the phone to Ava a bit later. And while I was on the phone to her, I could see you and her like fishing on a beach, and kind of the idea was it was like in New Zealand. And yeah, I don't know, it just came to me while you were speaking. I mean, everything you just said is awesome. It really is. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's for you, it's for everyone, young man, and it's about time because we've all been through hell here. And you can start off with the real universe as purity, what you consider purity to be. And, I see it as true sincerity, gratitude. These are gratitude. These are just see that, all of life is that. See? And you can stand in that all the time. You don't need attitudes about anything. You can be grateful all the time, you see? That becomes your reality. And life recognizes that you stand in that. See, that's the best part. And it supports you because of that, you know. And it is grateful to you that you recognize the gratitude that life is. You see, it's that and a lot more. See how it goes hand in hand? It's just simply that recognition. And it's invisible. Like when you love somebody, you don't see the love, but you think that, you know, most of the time it's the body forms. You think about a person, you imagine them, so it's more your mind and your emotions go more towards the body form. Okay, so you think that's love, you know, or a beautiful person or whatever, according to how you see that, you see. But it's really invisible, and you can't prove that to anybody. Of course not, because it's invisible. But it's something you decide. And so this is where you are the decider of how you relate to the true reality life is. And then from there, everything's available. Not just the things in creation that you create, you know, out of nothing. And really, what do they relate to for the most part? When you recognize this reality and you know, stand real with it in accordance, and you do something that makes sense with the whole of life in creation, then it recognizes that too, and it supports you. This is how it works.
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't. Yeah, and your references are really useful, like you said. I mean, just what you said now has made me recognize more, you know, appreciate the personal self, appreciate creation, because we need them to recognize the earth.
Yeah. And you compare the two, you see. So, and yes, you do, you see these things, but realistically, you can always do better. You know, it's like a job or anything. You can always do better. Do you want to stay and do the same thing, or do you want to do better? So, you know, you have the right to become more aware. That's the best way to describe it. You know, the old ideas of enlightenment and all these things, and etc., going to the higher worlds, and that's interesting. But really, it's a moment by moment becoming more aware and recognizing, you know, the nowness life is, because it's only new now. And the past can only be a reference. You know, that's all it can be, is references. You know, this, what I've created as a new presentation, this will go through its transitions. And, you know, things can only last for a certain amount of time, you might say. There goes Ava. And then, you know, there comes a new point. I already see that. And how I relate and how I write things and do whatever, it will go into its transition, you see. So this is the fun part too. This is the part that I really like, because it can only get better. That's what's so cool about it. It's not going to be something that, I don't look at it to be established. I just look and watch and see how long it'll run. You know, it's like a good movie out there, or a hit tune. You know, it can be on the top 10 for, you know, 50 weeks or whatever, but eventually can be the best song in the world ever, but it fades and something else takes its place, right? Yeah, it falls off the charts, etc. And, you know, life knows. But what's so cool when you're hooked up with the reality life is that it will always present itself. It is always presenting itself, because it's an isness more so. And you just have fun recognizing it. And just like the process I went through with the corporation and other things, well, most people didn't recognize it. Fortunately, I did. You know, these things just happened to where I did. And I had to go through a lot of this and that's too, to figure it out. But at some point you do figure it out. And then this is what we're doing. we start creating all over the place because it's fun. It's just really fun to do it. And just all the things that I've created. I didn't see this 10 years ago. I didn't see any of it. I mean, it was there, but I didn't see it. So a step at a time, we've come into it and created all of this. Now you kids are showing up and creating worldwide educators and all that. First, it was just the new presentation, and then I wanted to, have a writing title. Not just Duane Hepner. I started off with several of the books, Duane Hepner, but I didn't really like that. I wanted to do something a little more fun. So, so I created Duane the Great Writer. It was going to be, that was pretty bold and outlandish kind of in the beginning. I thought, okay, well, people are going to laugh at this, which they did. But just Duane the Writer, that didn't sound too cool. That sounded kind of corny. So I just I'll take the risk. I'll just make it Duane the Great Writer. I'll just start putting it out there. And people pay attention. And I'm glad I did it that way. And so the new presentation became a little bit more. And then eventually, as we started doing the Skypes, creating worldwide educators and wonderful worldwide educators. And that made sense to have fun with what we're doing. And it specified the world. You see, I like that too. And it wasn't just us in our neighborhood or our community, but it was the world, worldwide educators. And so that has stuck. And with whatever we're doing. And so, and these things make sense and they have a relationship and we build upon those and people decide to, etc. So, and here we are, Henry, and here you are. And this is where we're just having fun with it. So when I was in the corporation with Paul in the beginning, I studied a lot. I studied all the time. I read the books. I practiced. I went out there in the public. I taught. I created classes. I had classes. I always had classes. Yeah. For over 25 years in my home and whatever. I always had classes. I went out there in the public and gathered people and started my classes. Just like Ava and I got on Skype and all of a sudden people show up. This is better because we meet people all over the world. Yeah, I like this a lot better. It's a lot more fun. And so the challenge I see is very important to do something, just anything, and then see if you can figure it out and see how you can bring it around to where it can reference in some way, even a step at a time, to this true reality. Yeah, that's the fun part. Because that becomes your relationship. Yeah, you decide how important that is to you. Again, yes, you have the knowledge as a tool like your car, but the knowledge is not the reality. Again, this is where most people, they compare the two. Oh, you're saying what they're saying or whatever. Well, that's the words. That's not the reality. And again, this isn't for everybody. This is a lot more than it's ever been, more so than any spiritual path. Yeah. When you really compare the two, when you really go through it and see it, you'll see that those things don't mean anything anymore at all. They don't work. Those are just words and ideas. And what do they relate to? Spirit and gods and angels and aliens and from other planets, whatever, But this isness, to recognize this all aliveness, yeah, that's huge. Yeah, and I like the challenge. The bigger the challenge, the better I like it. That's why I like all this galactic stuff and that I'm doing with Claudia. Yeah, we ain't stopping there. We're just taking over all of creation. Yeah, because that's the fun part. Yeah, to get on top of it all and make this a real adventure, full time, instead of being bored. Yeah, you get beyond your 9-to-5 job and all that, but for now, that's what you do. I did it too. I was there. I was married, had the daughter, and was a contractor for almost 40 years. And it's fine. But now, with the world like it is, it just depends upon how much you want to wake up. And it's a wake-up time because the place is dying faster than you can realize. Yes. And there are nice places. Yeah, there's nice places on the earth, but still it doesn't mean they're not all poisoned. So, yeah, so here we are, young man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful here. do something real. Pretty cool. Yeah, just full of gratitude and yeah, it's been a wonderful hour. Yeah, real education, Duane. Thank you. You're really wonderful.
Well, I try to trick everybody into being wonderful. Yeah. The thing is that this is what we do. Now you go out there and trick others into being wonderful too, because it is cool. It is cool to wake up and do better, and what's taking place in the world should motivate people once they see all this, because they look around, they go, "What do I do?" And it's like they feel helpless, but you can do something. And number one, as you become more aware, so that you become a real person, and to see if you will have the courage to step up and share this and possibly educate others into becoming real too, because it's about awareness. It's not about just picking up trash off the beach. Yeah, you do that too. That's something physical. Go do it, whatever it is. But the bigger part, and be healthy and eat your grapes and whatever, and that's great. But the bigger part is to become more aware and to let people know about the true reality that is everything. And that's a toughie. That's a huge challenge. I like that. And I like the confrontation because it makes me become more able to present it through that challenge. And this is what I'm trying to get across the Africans or whatever, but they're comparing physical things, United States to Africa. Oh, we're poor, we can't do this, whatever. It's not about that. It's about doing something. Just do something. You figure something out. Even in the North and South Pole, they finally realized that, hey, okay, we don't have anything here, but at least we could chip away at the ice and possibly try to sell ice cubes to others, whatever, you see? There's always something. And so, the Africans have it, actually, they have it very good. There's a lot of them that they just get together and do something, but, for the most part, they won't, and they'll just fade back, and they'll go back to the corporation or religion because it's easy, where they can just go into some church or temple, etc., and just do what they've done for many lifetimes, and that is give in to someone else's creation that controls them. So you decide, and getting through creation is a lot, but you have a great advantage there, and what you're doing with your work and whatever, that will propel you. You will see the difference. It's okay to work hard, but eventually you'll get past that. There's always more. It always becomes a better position. And so this is just how it is physically, but we're doing fine. And Kelsey's great, and Val and you and Eric and whatever. It's all for you. You're very lucky because the boys pick everybody. Just like that experience that was on the last Skype, where this fella saw, he was down there in this valley, and digging in the land or something with Harold, whatever there, and I came along and I pointed to a couple. In other words, when people are ready, the boys will point. They will pull you out. They will give you the opportunity. They picked you, okay, gave you the opportunity to do this. And what each person does with that is up to them, you see. Yeah, life decides. We don't decide. Yes, we want something, but realistically, this is where people go on and on for who knows how long before anything happens, because they keep asking life, what about this or what about that? Well, actually, life decides. It knows when you're ready to do anything. It gives you an opportunity, and then you decide if you're going to do it. And many people are given the opportunity, but then they decide not to do it. So you're always the decider, and you can go as far as you want with anything you're doing. Yes, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, you really can. But the best part is the invisible part, to recognize what's real, and then to have fun creating something here that relates to that. Yes, that builds your relationship with this reality because it recognizes your intent. You see? Very important. That's your love affair, or it becomes 100%.
Yeah, that's. I don't really have much more to say. To be honest, Duane. Just yeah, you really. I don't know. I feel like yeah, you just increased my. I just see more from what you said. Yeah, yeah, I can make sense of things more, and yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. See, it just clears the air and you have your focus. Yeah. People want to let go and be okay, but, at the same time, they can't stop their mind or their emotions or their ideas. And, hey, you can always go to them. You don't need to carry them around. That's what's so nice, too, is you realize you don't have to carry all this stuff with you. You don't have to do anything. I just basically be nothing most of the time. When I go to sleep, I don't focus on anything. I don't want anything. I just focus on purity. That's all. I just focus on purity. I don't need to go anywhere or whatever because I already will. Whatever I need to do, the real side will do it. You see, so I don't even consider that. But again, it's people make the choice. You make the choice. Me, that's just what I do. I like things very simple. I'm a surfer. Surfers are very simple. I like being a surfer. That's why I like the universal surfer thing. It really makes sense with what we're doing. And we're going to build a lot more upon that. It's fun. Yeah. So, but yeah, I like keeping things simple. That's why, Paul gave a bunch of techniques was the spiritual exercise, bunch of different ones, for people. Me, it's just sing the new you. That's the real connection to the isness life is. That's it. And people ask, well, what is there anything else or whatever? No, you don't need anything else. It's everything. It'll connect you to everything. You know, you don't need to focus on the chakras and all this stuff anymore. We're not focused on the body parts. We're focusing on the true reality of life is, to where you eventually forget yourself. This is how you free yourself. But if you keep focusing on these things all the time, then you don't free yourself. You just stay restricted in a sound good situation of postures and meditation and all these things that equal what? They don't equal nothing. We already know that the vibrations affect the physical and the chakras and the blood and the nervous system. We already know that. Okay, fine. It's kind of like your car. You don't need to know if what's on underneath the hood every moment. You just start the car and you drive it. That's all you want to do, right? Well, that's what the new you is. You just do the new you and you're on your way. You don't have to consider all those other things. You always have a full tank of gas when you're doing the new you. You don't even have to consider how much gas you have. You don't even need a gas gauge. You see? Yeah, because you got everything. That's the way I see it. Why make it complicated? I don't want it complicated. I don't want to figure out all this stuff. It's just so much simpler. There's plenty of stuff to figure out anyhow. It's tough enough for people living on this earth as it is and doing what we're doing. So, again, appreciate you stepping up because realistically, it's all for you. All of these things that we've created is for you to better understand. So you have the challenge to figure yourself out. Yeah, because whatever's out there in the world is not going to work anymore. And what it's going to allow you to see is a reference that you don't need anymore. That's the only value it has. Yes, unless some of the information corresponds with your lifestyle or something, which is fine. It might for the moment, and that's fine too. But overall, no, it doesn't do anything because the isness life doesn't recognize it. Because it's not anything that's recognizable for this reality, you see? So doesn't work. Even though it sounds good, even though the old teachings and whatever, all the wisdom of the ancients sound good, they don't relate to the isness. And so the isness doesn't relate to them. So there's no backing. Doesn't support it. It's not interested. You see? It's only interested in something that makes sense and that's wonderful, wherever it's at. So just like a mother with a child loves the child, so life itself loves us. And when we start to wake up and start to recognize it, it supports us. It's so cool. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with old wisdom or all this nonsense. It has nothing to do with that. But people cling to those ideas emotionally, thinking that that's going to perpetuate them in some way. Well, it's not. Actually, they're a drag and they're a burden. They're usually tap lines. You don't need them. You just need to see clearly, like the sun shining. And then continually recognize and then do something that is fun and is a benefit to wake up others. And then you earn your way, you see? Just like you would as a soldier. You earn your stripes. You've earned your way. You establish yourself, you see? And then you become one of the real guides eventually too. You see, you establish yourself with them. That's the fun part. But you decide that. That's what you decide or not.